Hi, it's Jim Rickards. I got a call the other day from Sean Ring, one of my favorite editors in the financial reporting and newsletter business. And Sean said, Jim, I've got a special guest of my own. Sean is going to be interviewing Jason Hanson. Jason is a former CIA officer, highly trained. Today, he runs a private personal security school where he'll teach you all the survival techniques you need to kind of get through what seemed to be one crisis after another, whether it's social unrest, natural disaster, political dysfunction, etc. So Sean's going to be interviewing Jason in a minute, and Sean said, Jim, would you mind doing a kind of a short video intro to the whole thing and talk a little bit about Jason and your own experience? I said, Sean, I'd be glad to do that. Absolutely not a problem. But I'm on the road. I'm coming to you actually today from the beautiful city of New Orleans. It's great to be here. I said, can this wait till I get back to my regular studio and a little more production value? He said, Jim, it can't wait. It's absolutely that critical. Could you do it as soon as possible? So please forgive the informality of the backdrop, but we're doing this on the fly. But that's how important it is to get to you about this interview and the meaning of it. So I mentioned Jason Hanson with the CIA training. I had a long career in the CIA, so I'm sure I had some of the same training Jason had, and probably overlapped on a number of the missions and know a lot of the same people. But his point and Sean's point is absolutely critical. We all need to develop crisis survival techniques. I believe it or not, I still keep a copy of the old Boy Scout handbook I had when I was 10 years old. It's amazing what's in there if you can find one. They're pretty good. Everything how to build a stretcher and a tourniquet, and lighting a fire on wet ground, and kind of everything you need to do to survive. Still useful, but things have come a long way, and technology has changed, and the techniques are a lot better. But the crises that cause you to kind of go into survival mode have not changed. They're the same ones: natural disaster, social unrest, war, infrastructure collapse, financial panic. These things they've been around for a long time, and they're still out there. The one thing they all have in common is they come without warning. It's almost, I get occasional requests. People say, "Hey Jim, I agree with you that we're going to have a financial collapse. Could you call me the day before, and I'll sell my stocks and go to cash?" I said, look, I'm not going to know the exact day. I can tell you it's coming. I can tell you why. I can tell you how to prepare. Those things are all, in my expertise. So the one thing I know is that these things come without warning. You can see them coming in some ways, but the exact hour, the exact day, etc., it's impossible. There's always some trigger, some catalyst. And that's the point. You have to be prepared at all times for things that do happen, even if you don't know exactly when. And that's what Jason does, and I do that in my own way. And it's really important for you to be familiar with these techniques and get ready yourself. And I kind of mentioned part of the menu of things that could come up. Just look at recent experience. I mean, the George Floyd riots in the summer of 2020. That was, obviously a police incident, death of a perpetrator, George Floyd, in Minnesota. But there were hundreds of cities across the United States where large areas were burned. Some cities were practically burned down. Federal buildings were attacked. People were killed. Police versus demonstrators. As I say, car bombs, fires, blowing up police cars, burning down police cars, etc. That went on all summer, June, July, and into August of the summer of 2020. But my point is, who saw that coming? Maybe BLM and I call it Bolshevik Lives Matter, and Antifa, who are they claim to be the anti-fascists. They're actually the neo-fascists. They've been out there for a while, but they're kind of waiting for that moment. All of a sudden, boom, hundreds of cities were on fire again. Who was ready for that? The financial crisis of 2008, Lehman Brothers, Sunday night files their bankruptcy. We all know what happened next. And there are many other examples, earthquakes and wildfires. Let's look at what happened in Hawaii. Very, very tragic, but that literally came up almost out of nowhere in a matter of hours and burned down an entire city. So this is what you're up against. And the question is, are you prepared for that? Don't wait until it happens, because you won't have time. And this is where Jason's expertise can help see you through a lot of these different crises. What are some of the practical things you can do to get ready for this? One is always have some physical gold and silver. It doesn't have to be personal Fort Knox. If you had just 500 1 ounce American Eagle silver coins, you can get what's called a monster box. It's not cheap necessarily, about $15,000 at the market, but you'd be surprised. 500 1 ounce silver coins could pay for groceries for your family. Could help you survive in a world where if the power grid goes down, everyone's like, I've got money in the bank. Well, not really. You've got a bank account, but it's the bank controls the money. It's completely digital. When the power's out, the ATMs are going to be shut down. Credit cards won't work. Gas pumps won't work. So how are you going to get around and feed your family and all that? Well, this is a world where 1 ounce silver coins come in handy. I like gold also. A 1 ounce gold coin is nice, but it's worth a lot of money. It's worth over $2,000 at the moment. That's a lot of money to be, again, buying groceries or gas or whatever you can get. So I recommend the 1/10 of an ounce, or even the 1/4 ounce. It's 8 grams, 1/4 ounce pure gold, American Gold Eagle. It's 92% gold, but it is a 1/4 ounce. So you get a whole 1/4 ounce, 8 grams of gold. They put a little alloy in it, a little copper, which is a good idea because it makes it more durable. Gold's soft, can fade, through handling. But the 1/4 ounce American Gold Eagle with a full 1/4 ounce of gold plus the alloy was based on the British sovereign, which was about an 8 gram coin, money good all over the world for centuries. So those are two good things to have. You have your usual, your first aid kits, your water supply, etc. I've gone a lot further. I built the largest. I have a farm up in the mountains in a state. I built the largest non-commercial, non-government solar module array in New England. I power my house on it. And people say, "Well, gee, is that because of the Green New scam or climate change?" No, I had nothing to do with climate change. That is a scam, but it does have to do with being prepared for the power grid to go down. I'm not worried about the climate change. Climates do change over very long periods of time, but not because of CO2 or any of this nonsense. So it's something to be concerned about. But it wasn't because of climate change. It was because the power grid might go down. I have my own wells, fresh water, they're very clean actually. I have a small farm. I can raise my own food, but you can do it too. You don't need a huge patch of land. You can just have raised beds in your backyard. You can put solar panels on your roof. There are things you can do. Have gold and silver. There are things you can do to get ready now for these kind of disasters, which keep coming. I mean, you can say it's a rare probability, but actually it's a lot less rare than you might think. So I'm going to hand it over to Sean, and he's going to introduce Jason. But my point is, these crises keep happening. They can be life-threatening. They come without warning. You need to prepare now, and you can really do no better than to listen to Sean's interview with Jason to give you some good tips. So great being with you, and thank you very much.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Paradigm Press's YouTube channel. My name is Sean Ring. I am the editor of The Root Awakening. And today we've got a very special guest, someone I've been admiring on YouTube and whose books I've just bought and I can't wait to read. His name is Jason Hanson. Jason is a former CIA officer, a security specialist, a winner on Shark Tank, ABC's hit reality series, and the best-selling author of Spy Secrets That Could Save Your Life. We're going to talk a lot about that today. He's been all over the media. I'm sure you've seen it. I am pretty sure he's too modest to admit this, but I think Rachel Ray is in love with him. Welcome, Jason. Thank you very much for stopping by today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Sean.
Oh, brilliant. So again, I mentioned to Jason while we were in the green room that, I don't live in America. I pop over occasionally, even though I've got this accent still. And one of the things I was wondering, as a former CIA agent, which is amazing, what's your number one concern for the country that is the United States for now over the next few years?
So there's two of them. And there are two big concerns. The first concern, and I was just doing an interview with Fox News recently where I told them this, and they said, "Hey, what's your concern?" I said, one is the looting and the rioting getting out of control and getting worse, because I have 7 kids. If you don't discipline children, guess what? They keep doing bad things, right? If you don't put them in timeout, you don't ground them. Well, if you have people and you're slapping them on the wrist when they're looting and robbing a store, well, guess what? They keep doing it. So it's going to become more violent and more chaotic because we are not properly disciplining. There's not consequences for this bad behavior. I'll tell you a crazy example. My company does got a lot of bodyguard work. So we do bodyguard work for politicians, for our musicians, celebrities. One of my top guys was out at a concert in Chicago this past summer. And out near the tour bus area, there was a shootout between two kids. And when I say kids, teenagers.
Yeah.
My bodyguard witnessed the whole thing from a distance, and nobody was hurt. Chicago PD gets there, starts interviewing everybody, gets to my guy who's the bodyguard, and says, "Hey, what did you see?" He's like, "I saw this guy shoot. I saw this guy." And he says, "Did anybody get hurt?" "No." He says, "Are you hurt?" "No." "So nobody got shot?" "No." He says, "All right, I'm out of here." And he was like, "Wait a minute, where are you going?" He says, "Why am I going to do the paperwork and try and arrest these guys when they're going to be out on the streets in 4 hours? Because nobody here cares about prosecuting criminals." And
Oh, goodness.
100% true story. That is
Oh,
the crazy world we live in, which is why violence is only going to increase because criminals are not being properly disciplined, put in jail, whatever you want to call it. So that's the one big threat is just more violence because there's no consequences.
right.
The
Okay.
other big threat is a blackout, is a grid down scenario. And without saying anything that'll get me in trouble, is there have been many intelligence operations that have literally kept the lights on in this country, meaning an adversary of ours, let's just hypothetically say Iran or North Korea, trying to shut down a multi-states power grid. And by the work of some amazing intelligence officers, it didn't happen. So I tell people like it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So we don't know if it's going to happen this year or if it's going to happen next year or what year, but it's going to happen in the future, which is why I have multiple generators. I got propane, I've got gas, I've got solar because a grid down situation is going to happen. It's absolutely something you need to prepare for.
Wow, that's fantastic to know. Okay, thank you very much for that. All right, so so much to kind of parse out there, but what I'll do is I'll circle back
Sure.
to the myriad things we did. When you're looking at self defense skills, you just gave that great example of being in Chicago in the middle of a shootout, and boy, that happens once a day now. It seems in Chicago that news gets over here even. I guess so we're worried about, I guess, citizens who don't get disciplined. Do the, again, as an intelligence officer, are you concerned about the southern border as well? Are you worried about the millions that are just coming over? They don't seem to be the hardworking immigrants, maybe of the 60, 70, 80, 100 years ago. Does that also worry you?
Absolutely worries me
Mhm.
because in the intelligence business, what do you try and do? You try and get foreign intelligence operatives into another country. So, how is the easiest way to get in that country? Well, I'm just going to go slide in through the border because I'll blend in with everybody else. Nobody will find me. So, the fact, like anybody who doesn't think that, Chinese, Russian, North Korea, Cuban, all those intelligence officers who are trying to harm America drastically are not slipping into that southern border, they're out of their mind. I mean, they're laughing themselves. So we have to worry about criminals. We have to worry about other countries who want to do America harm. And it's so baffling to me that our current administration, and there's people in this country that don't want a border. Meaning, I tell people, like, if I went to France and I illegally got in there, the people of France would be pretty ticked off at me, right? I'm breaking the law. So why are you saying, oh yeah, go ahead and break the law, go ahead and come to my country and do it harm kind of thing. So yeah, it just blows my mind. The border is a very, as we know, porous but dangerous place for
Mhm.
criminals and foreign intelligence operatives to get into this country.
Yeah, it's incredible. I wrote an article in the Root, that'd be a couple months ago at least, that the actual the number of foreigners entering through the southern border actually outnumber the Mexicans now. The
I
Mexicans aren't
believe
the
it.
problem at all. It's
Yeah.
absolutely incredible stuff. Wow. Yeah, and it's interesting too over here because we have the European rail system, but there are immigration officers on every interstate train or intercountry train to make sure that people aren't crossing illegally. So yeah, I've never quite got that sitting over here why, the government hasn't stopped them from coming in other than perhaps wanting to increase the voter base. Um,
Well, I mean, yeah, of course, that's the only reason. I mean, how do we get more votes? That's the only thing they care about. So,
oh
like the
goodness.
fact that right now Texas is trying to build a wall and the federal government is suing Texas to stop the building of that wall, it's like, wait a minute, they're doing something you should be doing, and you're trying to stop them from protecting this country. It is, yeah, it's just ludicrous.
Yeah, that's bonkers. My parents just moved here, by the way, from Texas. So yeah, that like thought I'd get them in safer, higher ground. And I guess that leads to the next question. It kind of makes sense. Like you get a bunch of like gazillionaires
Mhm.
who are must be seeing what's going on. Peter Thiel has a bunker in New Zealand. I think Zuckerberg's building I don't know the gigantic version of the Bat Cave under his house in California. Everyone seems to have a bunker. If you're not a billionaire with a bunker, you're just not a cool billionaire. Um, do you think they see something as imminent? And if so, like what would it take for you, I guess, to start digging a hole next to your house to
Sure.
start building
So
one of
yeah,
these
yeah, I mean, I
things?
have many high net worth clients. I have clients who are billionaires, and
Right,
they do what you and I do just on steroids.
right.
So, like, if I was a billionaire, I'd have a bunker. I'd have this super cool thing that was a fortune. But I'll tell you what I do because I'm not a billionaire or anywhere
Mhm.
close to it. So, on my means, I have bug out properties, right? Bug out locations. You can get cheap property all over this country still. And what I do is I use shipping containers. So I get a shipping container and I get two 40-foot containers side by side. You chop out the center, and so you
Mhm.
put them together. And you can put wood paneling up and paneling and lights. And if you walk into these shipping containers, it looks like a hotel room, meaning it doesn't look like you're in a dirty shipping container. It's
Mhm.
wife approved. I'll put it that way. So I have shipping containers that look nice inside. They can run on my generators, they can run on solar. And what I say is like, you don't have to get a location you're never going to go to. Get a location where you want to visit. Have it be a cabin in the woods. So we have our cabin in the woods that is a shipping container, and we can go there, hang out. The kids love to run around, they love to play outdoors and all that type of stuff. So for the person like me who does not have an unlimited wealth, shipping containers cheap. You can get used ones, or inspect them obviously, but
Sure.
it's not that hard for a couple $1,000s to get some bug out land and a shipping container and have an off the grid place if you truly wanted to.
Right. And bug out like can we just describe just could you define bug out just so I'm absolutely sure I understand what you mean there?
So, I mean, there can be many situations when bug out. When I say bugging out, maybe the crap has hit the fan. Maybe, you've got mobs coming down your street and you need to get out of there and you're like, hey, it's time to go. Like if you live in a city, New York City, like if you live in a city, you better have a bug out plan.
Right.
Now, I don't live in a city. I will never live in a city again. When I was with the agency, I was living right outside of Washington, D.C. in Northern Virginia. But as soon as I left the agency, I very quickly got out of Dodge, went to a safe small town in Utah.
Right.
So bugging out is also, hey, maybe there's a wildfire coming and I need to bug out because it's a natural disaster where I got to get out of my house quickly and you have another safe place to go hunker down and be at. But I say, like, make it a place you want a vacation, have it be a vacation home wherever you're going to create.
Right. That's fantastic. I really like that. It's a good idea. I too, I lived in huge cities. I lived in New York and well, grew up outside New York, lived in London, lived in Singapore, lived in Hong Kong. And that was the first thing we thought about it. It was like get out of the cities. Don't want to be
Yes.
anywhere near the cities and get in the countryside. So that's brilliant. Okay. I really love that idea. I love the shipping container thing too. That's great. Um, and again, to be a bit provocative now, okay, and certainly not to be insulting or to impugn at all your service in any way, shape, or
Now you got
form.
me worried what in the heck you're going to ask.
But I mean, the stuff that's coming out, like you said it yourself, like the federal government is trying to stop Texas from building a border wall. You got the CIA that kind of, they said the Steele dossier was real. We had guys sign up for that. The FBI is implicated in J6 and, kind of ushering people in, like, yeah, let's get started. Do you think there's any way that the CIA and the FBI can either recover their reputations or will they be remembered in the same way as the KGB and the Stasi are remembered?
Okay, so here's what I think. I'll give you my thoughts. One, the amazing, I was agency, I was not FBI, obviously, but the men and women of
Right.
the CI are amazing. They do all the work that nobody sees. I mean, they're in the shadows. They do a really great job.
Mhm.
Here is the problem, and this is what a lot of people don't realize. People always talk about the deep state. And they
Right.
say, oh, the deep state is, the president or this or that. I know what the deep state is. I've seen the deep state. The
Mhm.
deep state are middle management in the government. The deep state are the guys in the CIA or the FBI, and they have that middle management job, and they're there for the next 30 years. They're not politically appointed. They're not gone every 4 years or every 8 years or whatever, and they cause the problems. So what I always tell people, and I'm conservative, I vote Republican, that's no secret whatsoever. It
Mhm.
is the liberals who are poisoning these entities. So they get in the CIA, they get in middle management, and they're trying to cause all these problems. And they're like, no, we shouldn't be boots on the ground. It's too dangerous to go out there, and we may cause international problems. No, no, no. The way you collect and gather intelligence is boots on the ground, having people on the ground. Same thing for the FBI. So it's this whole disgusting woke culture of let's not offend anybody, let's not do this and that. And these guys get in the middle management, and they're the deep state that tries to thwart other people from doing good. And I saw it firsthand. You've got the vast majority of people doing amazing work, but you have this percentage of people who know they're never going to get fired from the government. They're very woke, left, liberal, and they're the ones that are problems. They're the ones that are really going to, again, well, they've already trashed America, but continue to make it worse.
Yeah, it's funny. Just was writing about Bill Ackman and his crusade against DEI in Harvard and all that. And I'm hopeful. I'm kind of hoping that it stops in America because let's face it, Europe just pretty much follows whatever America does.
Right.
And seeing Germany just voluntarily deindustrialize has just been depressing. So I'm let's get hopeful. Hopefully, those people will go find gainful employment elsewhere. But getting back to your videos, your education, and obviously your company, there's so much great stuff on Jason's YouTube channel, which I will put in down in the description, of course. But just while we're here, what's a toss wallet? I just love the name. And why would we want to have one in dangerous cities? And a nut on a string. That's another really cool thing. If you could explain those two things, I'd love to
Sure,
hear
definitely.
them.
So, Toss Wallet, we'll start with that. You may be overseas as an intelligence officer, and you have what is your Toss wallet? It is a dummy wallet, meaning you've got a couple bucks in there of whatever the currency is. If you're an American, because most of us going overseas are, well, you know what I mean. We're not blending in. We're trying to be an American businessman or that type of cover. Is you'll have some U.S. dollars in there. And then what a buddy of mine likes to do, I never did this. I just had old expired credit cards I put in there, but he would get credit cards. He would call or he would call and say they were stolen. That way, if anybody ever took his wallet and tried to use it, it would show up as a stolen credit card. And so it's got everything that looks like a real wallet, but it's all dummy stuff. You don't care if you lose. So you're not going to keep $1,000 in this wallet. You're going to keep 20 bucks in various denominations. And
Right.
heaven forbid you get mugged. And maybe it's a situation where you're like, you know what? I don't want to get in a fight with this guy. I don't want to pull out my knife and stab him or shoot him or whatever. I feel he really just wants my wallet. I'll toss it to him. And then if he comes and tries to do stuff, that's when we'll go hands on. So a toss wallet is, hey, I think I'm getting robbed right here, buddy. Toss it and then run away. Or in some cases, I have not done it, but I've known people where you toss it their direction. Of course, they're trying to catch it and you rush them and you just pummel the crap out of them and use the toss wallet as a distraction. You can use it various ways, but if you're going overseas, definitely have a toss wallet. And then your real wallet should be in some travel pouch, which is inside your pants, which is very difficult to get to.
Okay, fantastic. Love that. Nut on a string. What's that
So
bad boy?
yes, so this is one of my favorite self-defense tools, carried it all over the world. You can get it through airport security and everything. So first, go to Home Depot, buy a nut. What do they cost? 50 cents, and get a decent sized nut. Like get a pretty, maybe not that big, but get a pretty good, decent sized nut. Then
Mhm.
you get a piece of string, or I like paracord. So when you're going through airport security, going overseas, you have your nut in some random place in your backpack. You have your piece of string and another piece of, right? Two separate items.
Right.
Then when you get through security, you thread it through. So you tie the string to the nut. And now you have that flail. And let me tell you, if you get hit with that thing hard enough, it will crack your skull open. It'll do some serious damage. I had a video where I cracked a windshield open just to prove a point of,
Son.
hey, this is not a kid's toy. It's not going to feel good. So for about $1, you can make this nut on a string. And again, somebody coming at you, waving this thing at them, they're going to realize maybe I should go rob somebody else because this guy could do some serious damage to my skull. So that is the nut on a string.
That is fantastic. I love that. That is great. And like I said, folks, watch Jason's YouTube videos. They're so informative, and I just absolutely love them. Um, if let's say we've got someone who is new to all this, someone who's kind of lived a very cotton wool wrap life, the very kind of nonviolent. What would be the number one tip you'd give to a layman who's never even worried about self-defense before?
I would tell them, understand, and I'll tell you right now, I'll explain it so you do understand. Learn how to run a surveillance detection route. It is SDR for short. So what is a surveillance detection route? It is a fancy way of saying you don't go straight from point A to point B. So in the spy world, let's say, Sean, you and I are spies. We're trying to recruit somebody over in Russia, and we have a meeting with them at McDonald's. We're not going to get in our car from our apartment and drive straight to that McDonald's location. Because if somebody follows us, well, then it exposes us and it exposes that asset we're trying to recruit. So a surveillance detection route means we may go to Starbucks, then we may go pick up our dry cleaning, then we may go to the gym, then we may go to Walmart. We're going to all these different places to see if we see the same cars or the same people. Once we feel we're clear of surveillance, then we go to that meeting at McDonald's. Now, in the spy world, you have to do it so it doesn't look obvious because if they realize you're running an SDR, they know you're a spy trying to elude them. Here in the US, we don't have to do that. And I'm going to tell you how anybody can run an SDR and give you a 5-minute example right now. I trained a woman. She was in the Macy's shoe department. She said, hey, this weird guy was kind of creeping me out, wandering around the Macy's shoe department staring at me. So I went over to housewares. About 2 minutes later, the same guy ended up in housewares. Then I went over to perfume, and sure enough, 2 minutes later, he was over in perfume. Then I went over to look at vacuums or whatever, and again, 2 minutes later, he showed up in vacuums. Well, she just ran a 5-minute SDR where we know this guy's following her because she's gone all these places. She told me, I saw a security guard, went up to the security guard, pointed out the guy. He took off running out of the Macy's shoe department, out of the front door of Macy's, and never saw him again. And I had the security guard walking me to my car. So anybody can run an SDR. When I'm driving home from my office every night to make sure I don't bring the boogeyman back to my house, I just check my mirror. If I think somebody's following me, I just go around the block. And if they're still following me, well, I know, I'm being followed because I went around the block. So learning how to run an SDR means you're paying attention to your surroundings, and that keeps you out of, most of the time, having to use self-defense. Because you see that creep following you. You see that person following you who's going to rob you or attack you. And so learn how to run an SDR and pay attention to your surroundings, and that stops a lot of the threats right there.
That's fantastic advice. The last thing I guess I guess I'll leave it to you because you've given us so much already. What would be like one last parting thought that you'd have for readers of Paradigm, that they can do actionable immediately besides all the great stuff you've already said?
So I have some training where I teach people how to become a human lie detector. And there's many ways to do it, many ways you see. I'll just tell you one thing, and you can use this in every day of your life. I use it all the time when I'm hiring people for my company. And what I tell people is when you're trying to detect lies, one way to do it is what I call the first 3 to 5 seconds. Right. And what the first 3 to 5 seconds means, as human beings, we are not made to lie. It's not natural to us, and we're not born that way. And so if you ask somebody a question and they're being honest, they have an immediate answer. They start, their head starts nodding, they start answering because they're being honest. If you ask somebody and they're lying, they may try and buy time saying, they may say, can you repeat that question? They're going to look like a deer in the headlights. They're not going to have a normal human reaction. So how I use this in my work is when people come to me that want to work for me, I'm baselining them. And all that means is I'm asking them normal everyday questions to get their comfort level, to see how they act comfortably, right? Same thing when the CIA polygraphed me, they didn't immediately sit me in a chair and say, Jason Hanson, are you a Russian spy? Are you trying to overthrow the United States government? They said, hey, is today Tuesday? Yes. Is it raining outside? Yes. Is this carpet blue? Yes. They do all those baseline questions. So I get somebody in trying to wants to work for me. I baseline them. Hey, where you from? What sports do you like? How's the weather? And then out of left field, I say, tell me the last time you stole something. Most people don't look nervous and they're like, oh, in sixth grade, I stole Snickers from the supermarket. Oh, in high school, I stole money out of my parents' wallet. True story. One time, I get this person, and it's a woman, and I'm like, tell me the last time you stole something. And she gets a deer in the headlights look, and she's like, well, and I said, hey, don't worry about it. We've all stole something. We've all made mistakes. She goes, okay, I'll tell you. My last job, I was a bookkeeper. I stole a ton of office supplies because I was going to set up a competing bookkeeping company. But I decided I didn't want to do that, so I need a job. It was like, obviously, I'm not hiring that woman. But and I'll tell you another way I do this. Another thing I ask is
Oh my goodness.
I say, tell me the last time you did drugs. And most people tell me, oh, I smoked marijuana in high school. I smoked in college. Same thing. We've all made mistakes. One time I had a guy, I say, tell me the last time you did drugs. He gets nervous in the face, gets the deer in the headlights look, starts stalling, say, hey, don't worry about it, blah, blah, blah. And he says, okay, I'll tell you. I do hard drugs on the weekend, but I never do drugs during the week, so it will never affect my work Monday through Friday. I didn't hire that guy either. So a great thing you can do is pay attention the first 3 to 5 seconds. If you want to know information, get them comfortable, and then out of left field, ask them an uncomfortable question. Hey, do you know where the missing wallet is that was on my desk? Do you know where the missing money is that was in the bank account? If they're honest, they're going to have a quick reaction. They're not going to look nervous in the face. If they look nervous and they're buying time, then they're probably lying. You need to probe further. So pay attention to the first 3 to 5 seconds of a person's response.
That's brilliant. Absolutely fantastic stuff. I can't thank you enough for coming on, Jason. I don't have any more questions for you. I just loved everything you taught, and I hope to have you on again, folks. I hope you enjoyed this. Jason Hanson, best-selling author, won Shark Tank, and is ex-CIA agent and security consultant who has just given us an absolutely fantastic list of things we need to learn, I think. Jason, thank you so much for that.
Hey, thanks for having me, Sean.
Folks, if you like this, like, subscribe, and leave a comment, and I'll see you again next time. Ciao.